Most of the time, we don't really think about the complex web of laws that surround us. Why would we? But what happens when the law, quite literally, shows up at your front door? See, understanding your rights isn't just for lawyers. It's powerful, practical knowledge for every single one of us. So today, we're going to demystify a really critical part of the Indian criminal justice system. What happens when you interact with the police? So picture this. There's a knock on your door. You open it, and it's the police. What do you do? What can they do? Knowing the answers to these questions is absolutely essential. So let's dive into the lawful limits of police power, because what you're about to see isn't just some legal theory. It's your power. Okay, first things first, let's talk about police powers. There's this common idea that police authority is kind of unlimited, but the truth is their powers are granted by law, and more importantly, they are limited by that same law. And that's really the foundation of our entire justice system. So, it all boils down to this simple but really powerful idea. Police have powers, yes, but those powers have very specific limits. And you, the citizen, have clearly defined rights that act as a check on that power. It's all about balance, and that balance is what's supposed to prevent the misuse of authority. Keep that in mind as we go. All right, time for a little myth busting. We've all seen this in movies a million times, right? The police are making an arrest. The person is totally cooperating, not putting up a fight at all. Can they still be slapped in handcuffs? What do you think? The answer is a big, clear cannot. Now, that might actually surprise some of you, but the law is super specific on this, and it's a perfect example of a legal limit on police power. So where does this come from? Well, the new law, the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, or BNSS for short, says in Section 46 that police cannot use unnecessary restraint. And what that means in the real world is that if a person isn't fighting back or trying to run away, putting them in handcuffs is generally seen as an unnecessary use of force. Okay, myth number 2. Let's paint a picture. The police are chasing a suspect, maybe a thief, who then ducks into your home to hide. Do the police have to stop, go get a warrant, and then come back? Or can they follow that person right inside? And this time, the answer is can. This just goes to show that while there are definitely limits, the police also have some pretty significant powers when a situation calls for it. Now, the why behind this is what's really interesting. Section 44 of that same law, the BNS, allows the police to enter a place when they're in what's called hot pursuit of someone they're allowed to arrest. So if they are actively chasing a suspect who runs into a building, they don't have to pause the chase to get a warrant. The urgency of that moment just overrides the requirement. Okay, so we've seen a couple of real-world examples of police powers and their limits. Now let's zoom in on the arrest itself. See, making an arrest isn't just about putting someone in a car. It's a formal legal process, and it has a strict set of rules that absolutely must be followed. And at the heart of these rules is this really important difference between two types of offenses, cognizable and non-cognizable. Basically, for the really serious stuff, the cognizable offenses like theft or kidnapping, the police can arrest without a warrant. But for less serious, non-cognizable offenses, they usually need to get a warrant first. This distinction is so important because it changes everything about how the police have to proceed from the very start. So, when a warrant is needed, what is it really? Well, it's not just a piece of paper. It's a formal, written order from a court, and it has to be incredibly specific. Who is being arrested for what exact offense? And it's got to have the official court seal. This is a crucial safeguard to make sure the police are targeting the right person for the right reason. An invalid warrant? That's not a warrant at all. Now, this is your checklist. You should burn this into your memory. For a lawful arrest, these 3 steps are totally non-negotiable. The officer has to be identifiable, a document called an arrest memo has to be created right then and there, and you have to be told that you have the right to tell someone what's happening. These aren't just suggestions, they are mandatory procedures to make sure everything is transparent and accountable. Okay, so an arrest has been made. Does that mean your rights just go out the window? Absolutely not. The next phase, being in custody, is also governed by a strict set of rules, all designed to protect the fundamental rights of every single citizen. Think of this slide as your shield. These are your core constitutional safeguards when you're detained. You have the right to know why you're being arrested, the right to a lawyer, the right to remain silent, and the right to a medical checkup. But let's take a closer look at one of these in particular because it involves a really important deadline. 24 hours. This is the golden rule of detention.
The police cannot just hold someone indefinitely. By law, they must present you before a neutral judge, a magistrate, within 24 hours of your arrest. This is a huge safeguard against illegal detention, and it makes sure a judge gets to look at the situation early on.
But what about that right to a lawyer? What if you're thinking, well, I can't afford one? The Supreme Court actually settled this in a landmark case. This quote confirms that access to justice is not some luxury for the wealthy. Everyone has a right to a lawyer, and if you can't afford one, the state has to provide one for you, period.
So, we've covered police powers, and we've covered your rights. But what happens when those rules get broken? This final section is maybe the most important one, understanding how you can hold power accountable.
You know, when your rights are violated, it can feel like the whole system has failed you. But what's important to know is that the law itself expects this might happen, and it provides specific ways for you to seek justice and hold officials accountable for their actions. The bottom line is you are not powerless. Here is a clear step-by-step path you can take. You can go up the chain of command and complain to a senior officer. You can go to an independent body like the Police Complaints Authority, or you can even bypass the police altogether and file a complaint directly with a magistrate. You have options. And accountability isn't just about getting an officer in trouble. It's also about getting a remedy for you. The law specifically says that you can be compensated if it's found you were wrongfully arrested or confined. This shows there are real, tangible consequences for misusing power. So we've seen it, right? The law gives us this whole framework of powers, limits, and rights. It gives you procedures to follow and ways to get help. The law is written down, it's pretty clear, but a right is only as strong as your willingness to actually use it. So the real question we want to leave you with is this. Now that you know, are you prepared to use this knowledge to protect yourself and others?